Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for holding this very important hearing. And as you've heard from my colleagues, this is something that Democrats and Republicans agree on. It is time to reevaluate Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act. Dr. Stenger, as the chair of the Congressional Black Caucus Health Brain Trust, I was particularly drawn to the section of your testimony where you discussed Section 230's negative effects on human well-being. May you please explain how Section 230's blanket immunity from liability for social media platforms can contribute to an increase in extremism and hate in society at large?
Yes, thank you for that question. I think we've gone over some very obvious harms, but I think much of it ties back to the immunity from liability, but also the ad-driven business model, which means that the algorithms optimize for engagement, the amount of the time on the platform. And what we've learned is that human beings are most engaged when they're outraged. And so this really produces a kind of race to the bottom of the brainstem sort of dynamic rather than kind of robust public square we would like to see. I think the problem, in a nutshell, is we have yet to acknowledge that we have a national virtual public square as stands. And it's a free-for-all. It is not encouraging the kind of well-reasoned, respectful argument, the agreement to disagree, all of these things that make America great. And I think reforms of Section 230 would help us get that back.
Thank you. Closely related to extremism and hate, I think there should be grave concerns about the influx of disinformation on social media platforms, and especially when it has adverse effects on some of the most vulnerable members of our society. Dr. Franks, your written testimony states that Section 230 was intended to enable and incentivize online intermediaries to engage in modernization and other content management practices to protect users from harmful content. However, my concern is that Section 230C1 is an incentive for social media platforms not to act even when they know their platforms are spreading harmful content. So how can we best ensure that social media and other internet platforms that choose not to moderate or remove harmful content are ineligible for the immunity protections provided by Section 230?
I think what we do have to do at this point is think about how C1 is providing that kind of immunity, which, as I've attempted to illustrate, really does undercut the whole idea of C2, right? If there's going to be a benefit for engaging in voluntary good behavior, but you're going to get the same benefit if you do nothing, and even if you do terrible things, then obviously that's inconsistent. So there has to be a clarification made about C1 that says you cannot interpret it in a way that will make it undermine the goals of C2, and at a minimum that means you cannot be profiting from harmful content, and I think it also means you cannot be an indifferent bystander.
Thank you so much. And Professor Leary, Georgia State University?
University of Georgia.
Oh, because my
Hence
daughter
the
graduated
dog
from...
reference, which I wouldn't have understood up until this semester.
I was going to say my daughter graduated from GSU. Across America, hundreds of state AGs, school districts, families, and parents of children who have been hurt or worse, killed as a result of dangerous and addictive social media platforms have filed cases seeking accountability for poorly designed social media products. Do you agree that all of America's children and young people deserve a safe, non-addictive social media product, and how would reforming Section 230 help in this effort? I know you agree.
Yes, I was going to say that's an easy question, yes. And I would note just a couple days ago, some tribal nations joined in these lawsuits that we're seeing with over 40 attorneys generals on some of these platforms, making some of the very arguments that you are pointing to. So I do agree, and again, I think the reform involves C1, as has been said, and talking about knowing or should have known, or deliberate indifference. You know, we might be able to have disagreements about the level of mens rea, but right now there is no mens rea, right? And the way that we hold people accountable is we say there's a standard of care that you should have, either designing your product, making it not addictive, et cetera, and whatever other feature, and you needed to abide by that. The problem is we have no idea what's going on behind all of these things because all of these suits have not been able to go forward.
Thank you, and I'm out of time. I yield back.
The gentlewoman